Recently, I had the privilege of being able to address the leadership team of the Climate Solutions Division of Ingersoll Rand. It was an opportunity for us to talk about the topic of how do you capitalize in changing times. What I was really trying to do is to help them do what a mentor of mine challenged me to do many, many years ago, and that was to never, ever waste a crisis. So I wanted to invite you to listen in while we talk about capitalizing in changing times.
Okay, so welcome back. Good to see you. Here's the question. Would you have come back had there not been dessert? No, don't answer that question. That's okay. You don't have to answer that question. But thank you for the privilege of being able to address you this afternoon and tonight. And like I always do, I want to start off with a test. You ready? One last test for the day. We're going to challenge you, see what you come up with. What's the answer to this? As you look on the board, take about 30 seconds and tell me how many squares you see. How many squares do you see? How many? 34? 25? 21? What? 27? 30. Somebody said it. 30 squares. There are 30 squares. You ready? Here they are. Watch. The obvious first 16. You got those. And then you got 30. 30 squares. So here, if you said 25 or less, you're probably suited for risk management. Okay? If you said 30, you're probably in accounting because you nailed it. You want it to be exactly right and to be accurate. If you were above 30, you're probably in sales because you're trying to push something that's not there. All right? There's 30 there. Tonight, in this brief time we have together, I want to talk to you about capitalizing in changing times, or my subtitle is Expanding Your Capacity. Being able to see what may not readily be obvious. Did you see all 30 squares? If you didn't, there was more there that could have been yours had you taken the time to really give it a little bit more reflection and consideration. How do you see what may not be readily obvious within any opportunity? That was just a simple question. It was a conundrum. You took a second to assess it. You gave it your best shot. But there probably was more there than most of you saw. I want to talk to you about how do you capitalize in changing times. You're going through changing times. The economic environment that we've been in for the last 2 years could be described as changing. We still haven't really found the new norm as of yet. Change is a part of life. One of the few constants in our universe is change. But think about this. When you initiate change, when you're proactive to produce change, you know what we call that in psychological circles? We call that growth. That's a good thing. That's when we initiate it. But when circumstances force change upon us, there's a crisis that comes along and we are forced to do things we may not normally do. You know what we call that? We tend to label that a hardship. So here's the question. Growth or hardship? Capitalizing in changing times, what does that mean? I love the commercial. Allstate has done a wonderful job in capturing the question of our day. You've probably seen the commercial. It opens like this. Dennis Haysbert is looking contemplatively off into the horizon. And he asks a most reflective question. He asks this question. Years from now, how will we look back on today? As the Great Recession or the recession that made us great? Isn't that it? I mean, really, in essence, isn't that it? Is the change being forced upon us, is it a hardship, or have we seized upon the moment? Does it exhilarate our souls and produce higher levels of performance? Will it make us great? He goes on to say, we've discovered that it's not about the things that we possess, but more about building a future with the ones that we love.
Sometimes we come to places in our lives and careers where we just feel stuck, and we need some help to build some momentum. Recently, I was asked to speak to a group of entrepreneurs on the very topic of how do you create a wave of success. I want to invite you to listen in as I address this group and we talk about how do you get unstuck? How do you build a wave that you can ride to success? Listen in. I think you'll learn something, and hopefully you'll enjoy it as well.
Well, the date was October the 15th, 1981. The Oakland Athletics were playing the New York Yankees in the third game of the American League Playoff Series. And that day, a single individual would do something so profound that it would forever mark the stadium experience for sports fans around the globe. In a section of the bleachers just off the third base line, a middle-aged, balding man stood up and he got the attention of the crowd with drum in hand. Crazy George Henderson got the attention of everybody in that section. And then what happened next was most remarkable, because Crazy George then made a gesture, a motion, a movement. All he did was he encouraged everybody else to emulate what he had just done. At first it faltered, not everybody really got it. It took a while for it to catch on, but before long it began to spread, and after 6 or 8 attempts, it actually swept around that stadium that day, and you got it. On October the 15th, 1981, the stadium wave was created. How many of you have participated at some time or another in the stadium wave? Well, and now you know the history. Isn't that great? It's impacted every single one of us, and you probably had no idea how it got started. But it got started with a single man who envisioned a possibility and then applied his efforts strategically to make it happen. Now watch, here's what I want to do today. I want to take the stadium wave and I want to use it as an analogy about how you can personally create movement and momentum in your life and in your business, both personally and professionally. Because the same elements that Crazy George pursued are the exact same elements that you need to pursue if you want to get off dead center. And all of us have come to times in our lives and in our careers where we felt like things had just kind of stalled. So the question is, how do you move beyond that, and how do you begin to build, in your case, for many of you, if you're an entrepreneurially spirited individual or a business owner or you're an independent contractor type, you need to understand what it takes to create a referral-based book of business. Agreed? So I want to take this analogy of the stadium wave that Crazy George started, and I want us to talk about how do you do that to build your business.